But I'm not here to sell my university. I'm here to promote study in Holland, of course, because I have my wonderful hosts from the NATO. But I'm here to tell you about my entrepreneur, well, actually what you read in Russian, of course, my entrepreneurial experience. And because social media has boomed in many countries in the world, including Russia, and I know that, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, what else is there? LinkedIn, I don't know, and of course your Russian ones. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which are very important to you as well. So these days you interact with the audience. You interact with your family. Do you know, the funny thing is that I'm sending the video and everything, and it's going to all my staff members to show them that I'm actually doing some work today. But it's also going to my mum, because, you know, she doesn't believe I work either. You know, because your life is much more integrated. So, for instance, you know, you can find me on Facebook. If so, you know, that's how easy it is. You can just go to Facebook, type in Peter Birdsall, you'll probably find me as the first hit. In fact, you can go to Google and type in Peter Birdsall and probably find me as the first hit. I'm so famous. But, you know, that's it. And I use my Facebook, obviously, to communicate about my work, because I like that. But you don't have to. You can keep them separate if you want. So we also have a nice Facebook page for Wittenborg University Apeldoorn. So if you go to these places now or later on, just go there, like us, of course, please, and you know, post a question. You can post questions on these places. I've seen that. So you can post a question. You can put a question onto here and say, I've just seen Peter Birdsall speaking in Moscow. Is he really that good? And then I'll go home and everybody say, fantastic. LinkedIn. Do any of you use LinkedIn? This is something which in Europe is, Western Europe, I'm sorry because you are in Europe, but Western Europe is very, very important at the moment in some countries. Holland, for instance, is the biggest user, the UK. France a little bit less. Germany have its own thing called Sing, which they use a lot. But LinkedIn is a really great place to promote yourself, because it's very much more business-like. It's not the sort of Facebook chit-chat, it's more the way to promote yourself in your career. So if you go to LinkedIn and you find me and you say, I want to link with you, because I met you in Moscow at this presentation that you gave, and you know, you inspired me, then, you know, I'll accept it, and then, you know, you have access to my network, and I have access to your network, which might be interesting as well. I'm sure it is. Twitter. I've never really done Twitter, but I'm sort of getting into it now because a lot of people around me are doing Twitter. So my staff said, tell them about Twitter, at Wittenborg_uni. And it's another place where people will be talking about things which happen in the daily life. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because when I started out running my own businesses, when I started my first business, none of this existed. I mean, most of you are looking to carry on your education, I presume. Huh? Are you all at high school or university, or are you in education or not in education? Who's still at school? Oh, and you look like you're still at school. That's nice, isn't it? Who's at university? Sorry?
I'm a teacher.
Are you a teacher? And wonderful. It's wonderful to be able to teach to a teacher. How many people at university here? Wow, look at that. Okay. How many people didn't finish their high school? Hey, that's brilliant. Welcome to the club. I dropped out of school when I was 17, and I dropped out actually to start my first company. But going back to our social media, the big question is, can you keep up? It's, you know, the world is an incredibly interactive place, and I can keep up. I'm sure you can keep up, but you have to keep up. So, before I tell you about me, guess where I live? Amsterdam. Well, I don't live in Amsterdam, but I do live in Holland. Now, hopefully I have a video which will play. Yeah, look at that.
What do you know about Holland? Flowers, windmills, picturesque canals, cheese, wooden shoes, master paintings from the Golden Age. Yes, yes, we have it all. But let me show you what's really cool about Holland. You call it organic and artisanal. We just call it food. You call it boutique, independent, alternative. We call it the 9th Street. You call it exercise. We call it a way of life. They still drive cars! Dutch! Oh, yeah. By the way, did you notice I'm speaking English? We all do. Hi! Hello! Hi!
Niet. Jullie noemen hem Van Gogh. Wij zeggen Van Gogh.
Did someone say Van Gogh? You call it art. We call it the Rijksmuseum. Dutch. You call it green energy. We call it tradition. You call it we call it Amsterdam. Go to Amsterdam in 2013. You call it a travel day. We call it the first day of vacation. Holland, the original cool. Visit us at holland.com/cool. Dutch!
So, how many of you are more interested in going to Holland now than 5 minutes ago? Yeah? Yeah, just down deep, you feel that. That's cool, isn't it? So, this is a country promoting itself. Yeah? For many reasons, of course, because Holland has only got, 16 and a bit million people, but its economy is incredibly booming, and one of its reasons for booming is its interaction with all the people around the world, and the amount of visitors coming into the country, the amount of people coming to study in Holland, the amount of people coming to work in Holland, the partnerships between businesses, and but they're promoting the feeling of being Dutch and the feeling of being in Holland and what makes them different. And later on, I'll show you a little film about study in Holland. You can remember that one and then compare the two, and compare the way that Holland sells itself as a country, but also how it sells a particular product. They're selling an experience. Now, a little bit about myself. Which one of those is me, do you think?
The right one.
The handsome one, you mean, with the beard? Now, this was me in 1984, and I was advertising a theatre production of a play by Sir George Bernard Shaw, who was a playwright in the 19th century, British playwright, and it was a play called Androcles and the Lion. Anybody heard of Androcles and the Lion? We're in a wonderful old library. I'm sure they have a copy of Androcles and the Lion here somewhere. Androcles and the Lion is an old biblical story about Androcles, who met a lion in the forest and pulled the thorn out of the lion's foot. And then later the Romans threw him into a sort of a big Colosseum to fight the lions. And of course the lion he bumped into was this one, who then didn't eat him because he'd saved his life. So it's a sort of biblical play that was rewritten in the 19th century by Shaw. And it was one of the plays that my theatre company, which I set up when I left school, was doing. So as I said, I left school at the age of 17. Actually, the reason that this happened was because I started a theatre company. The theatre company was called Tickled Pink Theatre Company. 1984, of course in Russia you were very much the socialist direction. In the UK we were very much opposite socialist side, and so most teenagers like myself were rebelling, and we wanted to call ourselves actually Tickled Red, but we thought Tickled Pink is a little bit in the middle. And we started an anarchistical and socialist theatre company producing plays that were slightly anti-establishment, but went down well in small to medium-sized theatres in the UK at the time. I also made some friends with people and who had lots of money, which is important when you're an entrepreneur at the age of 17. We converted an old cinema into a theatre, which actually is quite easy. We took out the first 20 seats and we made a stage. And then, of course, you had the auditorium going up, about 300 seats. And at the back, we took out the last 20 seats and we created a bar area. And we started a theatre, which was quite useful when you have a theatre company. But we travelled around England as well at the time. It was quite successful. Then, before I was 19, I was actually allowed to drink already, because the age for drinking alcohol in England is 18. So when I was 18 and a half, I actually got a job to go to Switzerland, which is where my mother comes from, to help establish an English pub in Switzerland. Now, that doesn't sound very exciting, but it actually was. And in a minute, I'll tell you that it was certainly a new experience for the Swiss. After that, I did go to Holland. Don't ask me why, you can ask me later. But I went to Holland. It's a long story. And I got to Holland, met some guys from Germany who were opening a French restaurant. And with them I opened what we call an experiential, not an experimental, but experiential. We weren't trying to kill people, we were trying to give them a good taste of food. An Italian restaurant in Holland. I also, after that, I've done lots of things, but I'm just highlighting a few of them. I started a green cleaning company. Green being environmentally green, yeah? So, but I'll tell you more about that in a second. To be continued. So, when I left school, I found it very easy to set up a theatre company. Because I was, I could act, I could talk to people like I'm doing now. But one of the things I've discovered is, of course, this proves that we had no digitalisation in 1984. This was a poster that we made for one of our plays called Can't Pay, Won't Pay. Can't Pay, Won't Pay is by Italian writer Dario Fo, who was an anarchistic, slightly communist thinking writer in Italy at the time, and he wrote this wonderful play about corruption in the police force in Italy, and we produced it. Dario Fo actually came over to to England to help us produce the play. But you can see we made the poster by drawing and sticking bits of words and everything onto a big sheet before it went into the printers. Because there was no social media, there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook. We didn't even have a computer. We didn't know what a computer was in 1984. So you can see, and that's not that long ago. That's when I was still younger than I am now, and I'm still young. So there is a theory that says that we're all actors in our own film. That theatre or play production or film relies on the customer's experience to provide product satisfaction. And one of the things I've learned after being involved in theatre is that whatever products I was involved in helping to sell or selling or setting up companies, the actual experience that your customers gain became more and more important. And nowadays, your experience, you expect to be involved in everything. You expect to be part of things. You expect to be given an experience when you pay anything worth of, even you'll see in a minute. Drinking coffee, for instance. Let's take you back to my examples in my history. So, selling drinks in an English pub to the Swiss. Now, you all know where Switzerland is. Yeah, it's a small country with lots of Swiss people, actually lots of foreign people now as well. No, actually, it's not a joke. There's 5 million of us Swiss, and there are 2 million non-Swiss living in Switzerland. That's an incredible balance, isn't it? But the Swiss tend to go to cafes and bars that look a bit like this. You probably have these in Russia as well. You know, where you go in, you sit down at a table, the waitress or the waiter comes to you, you order a beer, the waiter and waitress goes away, they then bring you the beer, they put it down, and you sit there opposite each other in chairs, and then you have another one. The Swiss like that, they're into that. But an English pub? Anybody been to England yet? Yeah? Been to an English pub? Yeah. Now, slightly different, isn't it? Now, of course, you've got bars in nightclubs and things like that, but just for your general normal pub, the place where you go after work to have a beer. Now, what's the main difference? What do you do in an English pub? You drink. Okay, so you walk into the pub, and then what do? Do you go and sit down? No. What do? You go to you walk to the bar and you order. Okay, and then when you order, what happens then? No. Think of it, every process. You go to the bar and you say, I'd like to have a martini dry, I'd like to have a gin and tonic, I'd like to have a pint of beer. And then what happens? Yeah, you get the drink. Ah, well done. Then you pay. So just think of this concept. Huh? You go into a pub, you order the drink, you get given the drink, and then before you start enjoying yourself, you pay. Now, for the Swiss, let's just go back a moment. That's a very strange concept. You know, I want to sit at my table and drink all evening, and then at the end of the evening, ask for the bill. I don't want to have to pay every time I get a drink. Walk up to the bar, you think exercise in a pub? What about standing at the bar? Yeah, so you can imagine immediately what we had. The English pub in Switzerland, it's still there actually. These days, of course, it's really normal. There's lots of English pubs in Switzerland. This was in 1986, I think. And we actually had the pub removed in London. So they actually took it apart, transported it on a lorry, and rebuilt it in Switzerland because the actual bar was one piece of wood. So you can imagine it was, fantastic. And when we opened, we actually had to hire 2 waitresses, basically, to stand at the door and to greet people and say, good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning. Have you ever been to an English pub before? And most Swiss would say, no, I've never been further than 20 kilometres up the road, it's got an English pub. And then they'd have to say, well, we'd just like to demonstrate to you how to order and enjoy your drink in an English pub. And they would actually demonstrate. They would walk with these people up to the bar, and they would actually go through the motion of ordering the drink and then paying for it. And they're not paying for it for the people, obviously, but asking the people to pay. And then, of course, the people would turn around and say, well, where do we sit? We don't sit. Well, you've got a stool. You can sit on the stool, or you can lean on the bar like that. Later on, we actually put real little tables in there as well, because the Swiss really hated the idea of not being able to sit down. But they really had to get used to it, because it was a totally new experience for a lot of these people to actually understand. But once they got used to the experience, in the beginning we had 4 or 5 people there in the evening. By the time I left, Saturday night, we had bouncers on the door, and the bar would have 10 people deep. You'd be shouting to get a drink. You'd be waving money like they do in England. pint of beer. Experience is something that these people will have been giving to their friends, and their friends will have been selling that experience through to other friends. So the bar became a success because of the experience, but by educating the people about what the experience should be. So the second example was my restaurant thing. It's a basic food, then having an experience. So it started as a French restaurant. But the French restaurant, and this was now in the Netherlands, yeah? A French restaurant in the town of Arnhem, which is in the sort of east centre part of the Netherlands. And the Dutch weren't really into French food, they weren't really into expensive French food, they weren't into having big plates with very small amounts of food on it for lots of money. You know, I'm not Dutch, yeah? But I'm English. The Dutch and the Scottish are very similar. You know, they like to make their money go a long way. So when they order a plate of food, they like a lot of food on the plate. So it didn't work. Change of plan. Actually, what happened was it was a Thursday evening, which in most Dutch cities is an evening when all the shops are open, so that people can go shopping late until 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the evening. And that's the evening when most restaurants are completely full. And we were sitting there and we had no customers the whole evening on a Thursday evening. So we were drinking the wine, our own wine, looking at no money in the till, and we were thinking we have to have a change of plan. And I came up with the idea, I said, why don't we start selling Italian food? Pizza and pasta, you know, it's foreign, so the Dutch will, you know, they already know what pizzas are. They might not know what pasta is totally, but pizzas they know. And what we could do is we can give away the pizzas and give away the pastas and just let them pay for the drinks and for the meat and for the salads and the ice cream. And like that we'll get more customers. The next morning we went into the restaurant, and of course we were sober with a headache after having drunk too much. And we thought, well, let's not give away the pizzas and pastas, let's charge 5 guilders. Yeah, we didn't have euro in those days, guilders they were called. 5 guilders. And we closed on the Friday, we started cooking all the sauces and things. One of us had a friend who had a pizza oven. And the other thing we said was, look, we have this little kitchen in the middle of the restaurant, basically which has been used to serve things and cook steaks. Why don't we now cook everything in the middle of the restaurant, and then when the customers are sitting at the tables, we can suggest to them that they come and help. Yeah, you can imagine. This happens a lot now, maybe not in Russia, but in Holland. So we brought cooking to the centre. Cook easy to understand food, and price according to the customer. Let the experience sell. When I left this restaurant 2 years later, and I bought myself out for 20,000 guilders, which at the time seemed so much money, and of course it's all gone now. But the restaurant became a chain of 18 restaurants, and the people who stayed on, the two guys I've been working with, became millionaires when they sold it. So they did very well. And of course now, open kitchens, the idea of cooking in the middle of people is much more normal. And even, you can see here are some photographs of my staff last summer, because I took all of our staff, all 50, 60 of them, to a special restaurant which would allow you to cook your own food before you eat it. So it's a really great concept, because it means you don't need much staff. You basically need a few chefs who will actually instruct, they will educate the guests on how to cook their own food. And everything will be ready, but it's an amazing concept. So you cook all your own food, you cut everything, you cook it, and then you even serve yourself. And you pay twice as much money than you would in a normal restaurant. Fantastic concept, isn't it? It's just the experience. Yeah, I wish I'd done that. Now, clean green. every entrepreneur has mistakes or things that didn't work. And I'm only going to tell you about one of them. There are a few more. In 1990, when was this? 1990. I started at, look, 1990. My PowerPoint knows more than I do. So I started this company called Clean Green. And the idea was to offer a completely environmentally cleaning service to companies. Yeah, so everything that you do in your cleaning company is environmentally friendly. Everything was recyclable, reusable, and didn't damage the environment. And honestly, it was a total failure. I got subsidy from the city council where I was living at the time, and within 6 months I was bankrupt. Yeah, luckily it wasn't too much money. I wasn't bankrupt. This company was. I mean, it didn't work. Why do you think it didn't work? Can anybody guess? Too early, exactly. It was too early. You know, company owners had no understanding of environmental issues, no feeling, no experience whatsoever. They couldn't care less. You know, you Google Green Clean now, and you will just find hundreds and hundreds of companies in Holland, in England, probably in Russia as well, that are promoting their environmentally clean and green attributes. You know, I'm staying in a hotel here in Moscow. You know, the first thing you see as you walk in is a big sign saying, you know, our environmental certificate that shows